This is a Roll to Hit Gaming First Look. In this video, we begin our 3-part game showcase. The first look covers components, rules, and setup. It is designed to give you a quick introduction to a game you might have interest in. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. Let's head into the game room for your Roll to Hit Gaming First Look host.
Welcome back. I'm Lucas for Roll to Hit Gaming, and today we take our first look at Pandemic: Reign of Cthulhu. Published in 2016 by Z-Man Games, Chuck Yeager reimagines Matt Leacock's classic Pandemic using the H.P. Lovecraft Cthulhu mythos. In this game, players take on the role of investigators, battling cultists and shoggoths in the streets of Arkham, Dunwich, Kingsport, and Innsmouth, trying to prevent the awakening of Cthulhu. In order to win, players must seal 4 gates. However, as we all know in Pandemic, there are many, many ways to lose. Fail, and you bring an era of madness on the world. Let's take a look.
Let's start off by looking at the figures that come with Pandemic: Reign of Cthulhu. In this reimagining of classic Pandemic, the disease cubes are replaced by 2 different types of figures. First up are cultists. These are small, plastic, hooded cultist figures that have a pretty good amount of detail for their size. Next up are the shoggoth figures. 3 of these figures come in the box. Unlike cultists, these can be rather difficult to get off the board, and they move across the board trying to escape through open gates. But we'll get into all that when we look into the rules. The final set of figures are investigator figures, which replace the plastic player pawns. These figures seem to be a softer plastic than the shoggoth or cultist figures, however their detail is fantastic. If you are of the mind to paint up your set of Pandemic: Reign of Cthulhu, these figures are begging for a good paint job to really add a level to your gaming experience. Let's look a little closer at the investigators. First up, the detective. The detective is essentially the scientist from classic Pandemic. They need only 4 cards, rather than 5, to close a gate. Next is the doctor, who may perform up to 5 actions per turn, rather than 4. Then the driver. When the driver performs a walk action, they move 2 spaces rather than 1. Next, the hunter, who removes all cultists from a location when they perform the defeat cultist action. This is your medic. Then the magician. They have a hand limit of 8 rather than 7 and start the game with a relic. Next is the occultist. This investigator can spend actions to move cultists and shoggoths. And last we have the reporter. When the reporter takes the bus action, they can discard any clue card to move to any location on the board, rather than needing to discard the clue card of the city that they're in. Each of these investigators can go insane. This couldn't be a Cthulhu game without that, right? If you lose all of your sanity, your card flips, you lose an action, and your abilities are altered. Let's look into the sanity components. There are 18 sanity tokens and a single sanity die in the box. The tokens are nice, thick cardboard like the others, and the sanity die is a really nice looking die. Each investigator begins the game with 4 sanity. There are events, actions, or cards which will require you to roll the sanity die and apply its effects. We'll cover that in a bit. Earlier, I mentioned that the magician starts with a relic. In the box, you'll find 12 relic cards. These cards typically grant you a one-time special ability, but at a cost. Using a relic causes you to roll the sanity die. Let's look at a few examples of relic cards. First, the Song of Kadath. No sanity roll is required to play this card. Choose one. All players regain 1 sanity, or 1 player regains full sanity. The Silver Key will allow the active player to instantly move to any location on the board. The Bizarre Statue allows you to skip the next summoning step. The Alien Carving lets the active player take 3 extra actions this turn. There are also 8 other relic cards in the box. Let's look at the Old One cards. The Old Ones will awaken one by one as the game unfolds, and each will either have a one-time effect that happens when it's awakened, such as Dagon's place 1 cultist on each gate location, or Haster's draw the bottom card from the summoning deck, place a shoggoth on that location, discard that card, then move each shoggoth 1 location closer to the nearest open gate. Some of the old ones will change the rules of the game in some way, and all of these effects are cumulative, so the more that awaken, the harder it gets to stave off the madness. For example, Yig makes sealing gates require an additional clue card from a connected town. You'll notice the symbol below the text that indicates this effect is permanent. Azathoth has you remove 3 cultists from the unused supply, and when you can't place a cultist, you lose. There are 12 Old One cards, and in any given game you will only use 7, so this gives you some variety from game to game, but you will always use Cthulhu. And of course, if Cthulhu awakens, the players lose. At the end of each player's turn, you will draw summoning cards, which add cultists to the board. There are 24 of these summoning cards, which match the locations on the game board. You have the market, the boardwalk, the diner, and the swamp. If you draw a summoning card with this symbol, the Shoggoths on the board will move 1 space closer to the nearest open gate. So what are these gates I keep talking about? These essentially represent the diseases from classic Pandemic. Each of the 4 cities has a single location with a gate symbol matching its colored token. These are nice thick cardboard tokens like all the other tokens in this set. Each turn, a player will draw clue cards from the clue deck, and these clues have multiple uses, one of which is to close gates. If you have collected 5 of the same clue cards, then on your turn, if you're at the location of the gate, spend an action, discard these 5 clue cards, and close the gate. Flip the clue icon and place it on the gate, marking it as closed. Victory occurs when the players have closed all 4 gates. There are also 4 Evil Stirs cards. These cards are all the same and are seeded into the clue deck. When you draw an Evil Stirs card, you simply follow the instructions on the card before proceeding. And last, the game comes with player reference cards for each player. Take note, publishers, all games should have these invaluable tools. All of the cards in the box are good quality, very similar to the quality of the cards in Classic Pandemic. Now we'll set up and show you the board, and show you how to set up for a game of Pandemic, Reign of Cthulhu.
This is the board for Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu. You'll notice there are 4 cities. Arkham, which is green, Innsmouth, which is purple, Dunwich, which is yellow, and Kingsport, which is red. Those colors correspond to the colors on the clue cards. So how do you set up for a game? First, place your Shoggoth or Cultist miniatures somewhere on or near the table. We've placed them in this blank area near the bottom of the board. Next, search through the Old One cards until you find Cthulhu. Place that card in the final Old One space marked with an X. Next, place your gate tokens in the play area near the bottom of the board, Elder Sign symbol up. Shuffle the remaining Old Ones and deal them on to the other Old One spaces on the board, so that now you have 6 face-down Old Ones with Cthulhu in the X space. Return the remaining Old Ones to the box. They won't be used for this game. Shuffle the summoning cards together and place them on the game board. Now we'll use the summoning deck to seed the initial cultists and Shoggoth onto the board. First, flip over the top 2 cards of the summoning deck. Hospital and Historic Inn. Place 3 cultists on each of these locations. Next, flip over 2 more cards. Boardwalk and Park, and put 2 cultists on each of these locations. Flip over 2 more cards and add 1 cultist to the police station and the diner. Finally, flip over 1 more card and add a Shoggoth to this location. The Ducks. Leave all of the drawn summoning cards in their discard pile to begin the game. Shuffle the 7 investigators and place 2 on the board. The first player picks 1 investigator and it's replaced. The second player picks an investigator and it's replaced. The third player picks an investigator. In a 3-player game, which is what we're setting up, that's all you have to select. The remaining investigators are returned to the box. Give each player 4 sanity tokens and place their miniature on the Arkham train station. Give each player a player reference card. Next, seed the game's difficulty using the clue deck. For introductory games, leave all of the cards in the clue deck. For standard games, remove 1 of each color, and for expert games, remove 2 of each color. Randomly select 4, 5, or 6 relics, based on whether you're playing 2, 3, or 4 players, and add them to the clue deck. Shuffle the deck, and then deal cards to each player based on the number of players in the game. For 2-player games, give each player 4 cards. For 3-player games, give each player 3 cards. And for 4-player games, give each player 2 cards. Players should keep their cards face up at all times. Next, divide the clue deck into 4 equal stacks. Add an Evil Stirs card to each stack. Shuffle each stack individually, and once all 4 stacks are shuffled, place them on top of one another. Place the now prepared player deck on or near the game area. You're now ready to begin playing Pandemic: Reign of Cthulhu. We've set up a 3-player game. Let's go through a few turns so you can see how it plays. Remember to place any unused relic cards in a draw area next to the player deck. On a player's turn, that player can perform 4 actions unless otherwise indicated, such as the Doctor. Those actions are walk, move from your current location to another location connected by a line. Take a bus. While on a bus station location, you can do this action in 2 ways. Discard a clue card to move to any location in the town pictured on the card, or discard a clue card matching the town you're in to move to any location on the board. Note that the game board for Pandemic: Reign of Cthulhu doesn't wrap from side to side like the game board in Classic Pandemic did. Next, a player can use a gate. You can move from one gate location to another gate location. However, after completing your move, you must roll the sanity die and apply its effects. You can also defeat a cultist. Remove 1 cultist figure from the location you're in, returning it to the supply. You can also defeat a Shoggoth. Remove 1 Shoggoth figure from the location you're in, returning it to the supply. Due to their unspeakable horror, defeating a Shoggoth takes 3 actions, and these 3 actions must all be spent on the same turn. However, after you successfully defeat a Shoggoth, you can draw 1 relic card from the unused relic pile. You can also either give or take 1 relic card to another investigator who shares your space. You can give or take 1 clue card to another investigator who shares your space in one of 2 ways. Give a clue card that matches the town you're in to another player, or take a clue card that matches the town you're in from another player. If the player who gets the card now has more than 7 cards, that player must immediately discard a card or play a relic card. The hand limit for Pandemic: Reign of Cthulhu is 7, unless otherwise stated. And finally, you can seal a gate. On a gate location, discard 5 clue cards from your hand that all match the town you're in, and place the matching seal token onto the gate. Then, remove 1 cultist from each location in the town whose gate you just sealed, and return them to the supply. The players have determined that the detective will go first. Being the first player, he can now perform 4 actions. Having an incredibly lucky draw of 3 Dunwich cards, and requiring only 4 to close a gate, the detective player decides to move towards the Dunwich gate location. he moves 1, 2, and 3, and chooses to use his fourth action to defeat a cultist at the historic inn. Note that much like an outbreak in classic Pandemic, had a fourth cultist been placed on the historic inn, an old one would have awakened. That didn't happen. The player's used his 4 actions, so he'll draw 2 cards from the player deck, and he's drawn his 4th yellow Dunwich card. At the conclusion of each player's turn, they must perform a summoning step. Flip over as many summoning cards as indicated by the number under the leftmost old one card. For this turn, we will flip over 2 summoning cards. Each location revealed will get a cultist figure. First is the cafe. Next is the swamp. The swamp has a Shoggoth Moves icon, so each Shoggoth on the board will move 1 space closer to the nearest gate. If a Shoggoth is on an open gate and a Shoggoth Move card is drawn, he will escape through the gate, and the players must perform an awakening ritual, revealing another old one. Once the summoning step has been completed, play proceeds to the next player. In our example, the second player is the Doctor, who receives 5 actions per turn rather than 4. The Doctor is going to use the Travel by Bus option and discard an Arkham card in order to move to any location on the board. He'll move to the boardwalk. However, anytime you enter a space with a Shoggoth, or a Shoggoth enters a space with you, you must roll the sanity die and apply its results. The Doctor rolls a blank face, indicating no effect. He then uses 3 of his actions to defeat the Shoggoth. Place it back in the pool. Having defeated a Shoggoth, the player then draws a relic card and adds it to their hand. With 1 action remaining, the Doctor moves to the factory. Having exhausted his actions, he draws 2 player cards and adds them to his hand. Then proceed to the summoning step. We're still required only to do 2 summoning cards. The first is the wharf. Place a cultist on each card revealed. Second is the woods. And this card also has a Shoggoth Moves icon. However, there are no Shoggoth on the board, so it has no effect. Play proceeds to the third player. The third player, in our example, is the driver. The driver can move 2 locations when performing a walk action rather than 1. He uses his first action to walk 2 spaces, his second and third actions to defeat cultists and return them to the supply, and his fourth action to walk 2 spaces to the diner. Having exhausted his 4 actions, he draws 2 player cards and adds them to his hand. Now we reveal 2 summoning cards. The first is the train station, where we will place a cultist. The next is the farmstead, where we will place another cultist. All players have gone 1 turn, so play returns to the first player, and the detective will begin his turn. Remember, the detective needs 4 cards to close a gate, rather than 5, and has drawn 4 Dunwich cards. He will use 1 action to defeat a cultist at the historic inn, returning it to the supply, his second action to move to the church, his third action to move to the gate location at the old mill. He'll use his fourth action and discard 4 Dunwich cards to close the Dunwich gate. Place the gate token on its closed side on the board over the old mill. In order to win a game of Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu, the players must close 4 gates. Having closed a gate in Dunwich, player 1 may now remove 1 cultist from each location in Dunwich. As you can see, closing gates will help you clear out cultists. Having exhausted his 4 actions, Player 1 now draws 2 player cards. Player 1 draws a Kingsport card and adds it to his hand. However, he has also drawn the first Evil Stirs card. When an Evil Stirs card is drawn, first players must fight the madness. Each player would roll the sanity die and apply its results. Then you would perform an awakening. Flip over and reveal the leftmost Old One card and apply its effects. In this case, Ithiqua, a permanent effect. To walk out of a location with 2 or more cultists, a player must first defeat a cultist at that location. This effect will remain in play for the duration of the game. Next, a Shoggoth appears. Take the bottom card from the summoning deck and place a Shoggoth at that location. Next, the cultists regroup. Shuffle the summoning discard and place the shuffled cards on top of the summoning deck. This will cause the locations that have already been drawn to be the focus of the next set of drawn cards. Evil Stirs has been resolved, so play proceeds to the summoning step. Reference the number on the leftmost revealed Old One to see that you should still only draw 2 summoning cards. The police station. Place a cultist. The woods. Place a cultist, and it has a Shoggoth moves icon. The Shoggoth will move 1 step closer to the nearest open gate. Note that once a gate is closed, the Shoggoth will no longer attempt to proceed towards that gate. Play proceeds in this manner until either the players are victorious by closing all 4 gates, or the players have been defeated by one of 5 methods. The last Old One, Cthulhu himself, awakens. There are no cultist figures left to add to the board when players must add one. There are no Shoggoth figures left to add to the board when players must add one. A player cannot draw 2 player cards after performing their actions, or all players have gone insane. Obviously, we couldn't cover every rule for Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu in this first look, but hopefully this will give you an idea of how the game plays. We'll come back in our next video to give you a full playthrough of Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu, and then in the third of our 3-part series, we'll give you our impressions of this game. I'm Lucas. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining Roll to Hit Gaming for another First Look, where we go inside the box, through the rules, and onto the table. If you liked what you saw and want to see more, please click the like and subscribe buttons. Find us on Facebook and Twitter, and join us in the conversation in the comments below. We'll see you next time, and as always, never give up, never surrender.